Hey yo, Mark here for Mark's Max Muscle. And today I'm going to be doing a profile on a bodybuilder by the name of Boyer Coe. Boyer has to be one of the most durable bodybuilders of all time, competing in 4 different decades. So without further ado, let's take a look at the incredible career of Boyer Coe. Born in 1946, Boyer Coe was an American bodybuilder. With a 5'9" frame and a weight of 215 pounds, Boyer was always top flight competition for anyone on the bodybuilding stage. Boyer was one of those bodybuilders with very few weaknesses. From head to toe, he was packed with quality muscle. Have a look at the thickness of those arms. Not only that, but he also possessed an incredible set of legs. Actually, in my opinion, he had some of the best legs for his time, in particular in the 70s. Here he is pretty much dwarfing Frank Zane in the leg department. Of course, Boyer was known for having perhaps not the most defined set of abs in the world, but that was really a genetic trait. And he always kept his waist tight and shredded. Of course, when speaking of genetics, Boyer Coe was definitely at the top of the heap. Look at the incredible split in the center of Coe's bicep. I think this bicep split was an incredible feature, and it really set him apart from all of his competitors. Boyer Coe's bodybuilding stats are mind-boggling. I think this might even match Al Beckel's record. Well, maybe. Coe's competitive history began way back in 1962. It was here where he entered the Teenage Mr. South contest. And with no actual training, he placed an incredible 5th place at a mere 16 years of age. In 1965, Boyer won the AAU Mr. Texas title. He would also take the most muscular title at that same event. Let's fast forward to 1969 and the NABA Mr. Universe. Boyer Coe would take this prestigious title alongside the winner of the NABA Pro Mr. Universe, who was Arnold Schwarzenegger. So Boyer was in some pretty good company here. In 1970, Boyer would vie for the NABA Pro Mr. Universe. He won his weight class, but lost to Frank Zane for the overall title. Let's fast forward once again to 1972. Boyer would try yet again for the NABA Pro Mr. Universe. He would place a disappointing 2nd place in his weight class. But Boyer Coe was never one to give up. He was, if anything, a true champion. And at the 1973 NABA Pro Mr. Universe, Coe proved it to the world that he has what it takes to not only compete against the best bodybuilders in the world, but also reign victorious. Boyer Coe would become the 1973 NABA Pro Mr. Universe champion. Now, at that time, this title meant a whole lot more than it does now. In 1975, Boyer would once again take home the NABA Pro Mr. Universe title. Now with 3 Universe titles to his credit, Boyer would move up to the IFBB, and in 1976, he would make his Mr. Olympia debut. This was not a great showing for Boyer, as he placed dead last in his weight class. At the 1977 Mr. Olympia, Boyer climbed in placings. He placed 4th overall, which wasn't too bad considering the stacked lineup that year. At the 1978 Mr. Olympia, the lineup was once again fully stacked with great talent. This time, Boyer would place a close second to Frank Zane in their weight class. Coe would go on to place 4th overall that night. The 1979 Mr. Olympia was yet again another second place finish for Boyer Coe. Losing again, of course, to the winner that year, Frank Zane. This time, however, Boyer Coe actually knocked off quite a few big names. He placed ahead of the likes of Danny Padilla, Tom Platz, Al Beckles, Chris Dickerson, and the greatest bodybuilder of all time, Robbie Robinson. Whew, now there's a who's who of bodybuilding in the late 70s and the early 80s. His great performance at the 79 Olympia would give Boyer all the momentum he needed heading into the 1980 event. And the 1980 Mr. Olympia had more competitors than ever before. It also featured 1 current champion, 1 former champion, and 2 eventual champions. Now that's a lot of Mr. Olympias on one stage. With politics rearing its ugly head, the placings at the Olympia, still to today, are highly debated. Boyer did manage to secure a 4th place finish, although many people do believe that he should have placed higher, or even perhaps had been the 1980 Mr. Olympia champion. But history is just that, and the placings will always remain. Boyer, along with several other top bodybuilders, would boycott the 1981 Mr. Olympia contest. Interestingly enough, he would actually compete and win several IFBB shows. Boyer made his way back to the Olympia stage at the 1982 event. And I must say, Boyer's posing routine was one of the strangest displays I had ever seen in my entire life. First and foremost, Boyer walked out wearing a fresh, crisp beard. At this point, I definitely suspected that he was on some sort of hallucinogen. But anyway, his music started, and apparently he had gone with the Rocky III song, Eye of the Tiger. To me, this is just a terrible selection for posing music. So, as he started his routine, it seemed that he was battling against an invisible opponent. That's right. He just started punching the air over and over and over again. Now I was definitely convinced he had taken some sort of drug. After the air had received a thorough smashing by Boyer, he then turned to the other side and, without hesitation, continued to pummel a second invisible man. At this point, I had no choice but to, start rooting for Boyer. Then, with one big last haymaker, it seemed he had knocked out all of his enemies. Then he finished off his routine with a few bicep splits and called it a day. After this highly unusual display, the judges had no choice but to place him way down in the 11th spot. Boyer would not return to the Olympia stage until 1984. At this point, the competition in the IFBB was more fierce than ever before, and as good as Boyer looked, he still slipped down in placings. He finished in the 13th position. It was then that Boyer Coe would retire from competitive bodybuilding. That is, until 1994, when Joe Eder would introduce the Masters Olympia competition. This was for competitors of 40 years of age and older. This was a very exciting event, featuring all kinds of legendary bodybuilders. In the end, Boyer placed a disappointing 3rd to Lou Ferrigno. And the winner of the very first ever Masters Olympia competition was, of course, Robbie Robinson. I will say, Boyer looked incredible for a 47-year-old athlete. I actually think he improved from his last showing at the Olympia in 1984. Boyer would compete one last time in 1995, trying once again for the Masters Olympia competition. He would place a disappointing 10th place. After his retirement from competitive bodybuilding, Boyer remained in the bodybuilding world as a host of a fitness television show that was broadcast in the 1990s. To me, Boyer Coe is one of those bodybuilders like Robbie Robinson or Al Beckles in that they just never seem to quit. He is one of the greatest bodybuilders to ever step on the stage, in my opinion, and is definitely, without a doubt, one of my all-time favorites. He is Boyer Coe, a bodybuilding legend. Well, that about does it for that one. Of course, let me know in the comment section below if there's any other legendary bodybuilders such as Boyer Coe that you want me to do profiles on. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hit like and subscribe if you did. And that's it for now. This is Mark for Mark's Max Muscle.